Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know, first, China's ZYT trains its self-driving AI on vacuums and drones using a state ownership shift to bypass sanctions and target European markets. We'll analyze why this radical training approach is a turning point and how its state-backed strategy could affect global autonomous driving competition. Second $8 billion deal, SK Hynix locks in ASML's EUV machines, escalating the global HBM chip arms race for AI dominance. In this episode, we'll break down this massive supply chain move and what it signals for the future availability of critical HBM memory. Third, FCC bans all new foreign-made routers over national security fears, disrupting the US market and creating a major supply chain crisis. We'll explore how this sweeping ban could reshape the consumer hardware market and why it hands a massive advantage to Elon Musk's Starlink. Fourth, OnlyFans billionaire owner dies, leaving the $5.5 billion platform's future uncertain amid a potential sale and looming European regulations. So we'll discuss why his death creates a power vacuum and what it means for the company's ability to fight new EU regulations. Fifth, Apple's iPhone 18 launch may be staggered due to Apple intelligence delays, holding its entire hardware roadmap hostage to a Siri overhaul. This discussion will reveal how Siri's technical debt connects to the AI race and what it means for Apple's on-device privacy strategy. It actually drives better than me. That is a direct quote from the CEO of Chinese AI startup ZYT, talking about the new autonomous driving system his company is about to debut. This isn't just another self-driving car. ZYT, a spin-off from drone maker DJI, has developed a mobility foundation model AI. And the way it learned to drive is the real bombshell. Instead of just using road data, the system was fed video from drones, robots, motorcycles, and even household vacuum cleaners. This is a fundamentally different approach. Most self-driving systems you hear about are highly specialized. You have Waymo, which relies on incredibly detailed, pre-built 3D maps of a city to navigate. Then you have Tesla, which uses a vision-only system, but it's an end-to-end neural network trained almost exclusively on driving data. ZYT's foundation model is different. By learning from vacuums and drones, it's not just learning to drive. It's learning a generalized understanding of physics, movement, and how objects interact in the real world. The bet is that this creates a more adaptable AI that can handle brand new situations it's never seen before. The result is an AI so advanced that when CEO Shen Xiaoji took a test drive, his own engineers delivered a stark warning: we don't know what the car is thinking. The model is thinking in its own internal brain. Believe it or not, that statement is at the heart of the biggest debate in AI. It's called the black box problem. The AI works, but we don't always know how times it's making its decisions. This is a massive ethical and regulatory hurdle. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. While the US and Europe are still debating, China is pushing forward with new rules that surprisingly demand more from these systems. They're requiring that even level 3 cars must be able to perform emergency maneuvers on their own, like changing lanes and parking safely if the driver doesn't respond. They are also mandating a data recorder, like an airplane's black box, to figure out who's at fault in an accident. This radical new approach is built for speed. The company adapted its AI from passenger cars to heavy-duty trucks in just 6 weeks. ZYT has already secured partnerships with 5 of China's 6 largest truck manufacturers, a group controlling over 98% of the domestic market. This puts them in a high-stakes competition with rivals like Tesla and Huawei. So the focus on trucks isn't a side project, it's the main event driven by the lure of immediate profitability. China's logistics industry is massive and growing, but it faces a severe shortage of truck drivers. Autonomous trucks promise to solve this while dramatically cutting costs. We're talking about running trucks 24/7, reducing fuel consumption, and lowering accident rates. Another company, CargoBot, is already operating over 400 autonomous trucks in China. This isn't a future-facing technology. It's a solution to a huge economic problem right now, but that's not the whole picture. A major power shift just happened behind the scenes. Chinese state-owned automaker FAW Group recently became ZYT's largest shareholder. The CEO says this transaction resolves potential compliance issues for global customers, as ZYT is no longer majority owned by the US-sanctioned drone maker DJI. It appears to be a strategic playbook we've seen before. When a Chinese tech firm with ties to a sanctioned entity like DJI wants to access global markets and capital, it faces huge compliance walls. By having a state-owned, non-sanctioned company like Ford become the largest shareholder, ZYT effectively cleanses its ownership structure. It's a sophisticated way to navigate geopolitical sanctions, a tactic used by other major Chinese tech firms to maintain access to international partners and investors. With a Hong Kong IPO targeted for as early as 2027, ZYT is already testing its prototypes on European roads. When asked about entering the United States market, the CEO's position was clear. ZYT will stay away for now, stating the rest of the world is already picking up. From one high-stakes tech race centered on AI in China, we're zooming out to the global supply chain that powers it all. Let's start with a single statistic that might just change your entire perspective on the chip industry. SK Hynix is spending nearly $8 billion on equipment from a single company. This isn't an acquisition, it's a shopping trip, and it represents the largest single order ever publicly disclosed for the supplier ASML. The purchase is for their highly specialized EUV lithography tools, the ultra-advanced machines required to create the circuitry on the world's most powerful chips. This is a big deal because for years, chip makers used something called deep ultraviolet or DUV lithography. But as chips got smaller and more complex, DUV started hitting its limits. Think of it like trying to draw an incredibly fine line with a thick marker. You have to go over it multiple times, which is slow and can get messy. EUV, or extreme ultraviolet, uses a much shorter wavelength of light. It's like switching to a pen with an ultra-fine point. This allows for more precise single-pass patterning, which is exactly what you need to build the next generation of advanced memory. This isn't just a big purchase order, though. It's a massive strategic play in the global race for artificial intelligence. The new equipment is specifically intended to produce high bandwidth memory, or HBM chips, which are the critical components fueling the AI boom. A while back, we talked about HBM demand running roughly 50% ahead of supply and the rise of multi-year locked-in deals to secure it. Today's move is SK Hynix pushing that same playbook upstream, locking in the lithography capacity they'll need to actually build that memory. HBM isn't like the regular memory in your laptop. It stands for high bandwidth memory, and it's like a skyscraper of memory chips stacked vertically and connected with thousands of tiny pathways. This design allows for a massive data highway, moving information at speeds that traditional memory can't even dream of. And AI models, with their trillions of parameters, are incredibly data hungry. They need that massive highway to function, which is why HBM has become the black gold of the AI industry. An analyst estimates this order is for around 30 new EUV machines, a major ramp up. SK Hynix is accelerating the opening of a new plant just to get these tools deployed by 2027. Those scanners are slated for SK Hynix's Yongin and Cheongju sites, with installations expected by the end of 2027. They are locking in their supply of the most sophisticated chip-making technology on the planet years in advance, and locking in that supply is absolutely critical, especially since ASML is the only company in the world that makes these EUV machines. They have a monopoly, and their order backlog is worth tens of billions of dollars. They don't just sell to whoever comes first. They allocate these precious machines based on strategic importance and order size. The logic is simple. Allocation power matters as much as money. So by placing this massive multi-year order, SK Hynix isn't just buying equipment, they are cementing their place at the very front of the line for years to come. This $8 billion deal isn't just a transaction, it's a declaration. In the high-stakes battle to power the future of AI, SK Hynix is going all in. What we're actually witnessing is an HBM arms race. SK Hynix already controls over half of the entire global market for these chips, and their production capacity is reportedly sold out through 2026. This move is a direct challenge to their biggest rivals, Samsung and Micron, who are scrambling to catch up. This isn't just about fulfilling current demand, it's about betting that the AI revolution's appetite for memory is nearly infinite and ensuring they are the ones who get to feed it. Speaking of the critical global hardware supply chain, the US government just threw a massive wrench into the works for a different but equally common piece of technology. The Federal Communications Commission has officially banned all new foreign-made consumer routers, citing national security fears. This move puts the humble router on the same level as foreign-made drones, which were banned last year for similar reasons. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer to this. It's a hardware ban for what is often a software problem. The real question is, does banning the physical box solve the issue if the software inside it, which can be updated or manipulated remotely, remains the key vulnerability? The official reason? The FCC states malicious actors have exploited these devices to attack American households, enable espionage, and steal intellectual property. This isn't just a hypothetical threat. The Commission directly linked router vulnerabilities to 3 major cyber attacks aimed at US infrastructure, with government investigations blaming actors connected to the Chinese government. For context, the attacks the government is referring to, like the infamous Volt Typhoon group, typically work by exploiting software weaknesses. They find routers with outdated firmware or guess default passwords that were never changed. So while a hardware ban sounds tough, security experts will tell you that the real battle is in keeping software updated and secure. And this doesn't just affect a few obscure brands. The vast majority of internet routers are manufactured outside the US, primarily in China or Taiwan. The ban hits so hard that even popular American companies like Netgear are impacted because they manufacture all of their products abroad. For a company like Netgear, this isn't a minor hurdle, it's a logistical nightmare, largely because moving manufacturing to the US is incredibly difficult. Labor costs alone are a huge factor, with US electronics manufacturing wages being up to 10 times higher than in Asia. We're talking $20 to $30 an hour here versus just $3 to $7 there. And it's not just about final assembly. It's about the entire supply chain for every tiny chip and plastic part, which is almost entirely based overseas. The new rule is a virtual wall. For any company to sell a new router model in the US, it must now apply for special approval. That process requires disclosing all foreign influence and, crucially, submitting a plan to bring the manufacturing of the routers to the United States. The situation presents a fascinating duality on the manufacturing front. On one side, the government is demanding US production, but on the other, the legal definition of manufactured in the United States is surprisingly flexible. The government uses a test called substantial transformation, which is supposed to prevent companies from just screwing a final piece on in a US factory and calling it made in USA. However, there's a real concern that companies could find loopholes performing minimal assembly here while all the critical components and firmware still come from abroad, potentially defeating the entire security purpose of the ban. This decision effectively upends the entire supply chain for one of the most common pieces of technology in the world. But while nearly every major player faces a massive hurdle, there is one notable exception. Starlink, part of Elon Musk's company SpaceX, already manufactures its routers in Texas, placing it in a unique position to navigate this new landscape. The entire consumer hardware market is being reshaped overnight by government decree, potentially handing Starlink a colossal competitive advantage. While a government mandate is reshaping the router market, the sudden death of a single individual is now threatening to upend another multi-billion-dollar digital empire. The 43-year-old owner of OnlyFans, Leonid Radvinsky, has died on the 20th of March 2026, leaving a controversial multi-billion-dollar content empire hanging in the balance. Radvinsky's death creates a massive power vacuum because he wasn't just an owner. He was the sole shareholder who acquired a 75% stake in 2018. What really brought this to a head was the timing. Right before his passing, OnlyFans was reportedly in exclusive talks to sell a majority stake to an investment firm, valuing the company at around $5.5 billion. Now, with him gone, the biggest question is who inherits control? Will his estate run it? Will that sale go through? Or will we see a fire sale to the highest bidder? Radvinsky, who bought the company in 2018, oversaw its explosive growth into a financial juggernaut. The company generated $7.22 billion in gross revenue in just 1 year. It processed over £7 billion in transactions from a user base of more than 377 million subscribers, and those numbers have only grown. More recent reports for fiscal year 2024 show the platform generated an unbelievable $7.22 billion in gross revenue, with pre-tax profits hitting $684 million and net revenue of $1.4 billion. For its 4.6 million creators, OnlyFans became a lifeline, and for the company, it turned into a cash machine, taking a 20% cut of all payments. Interestingly enough, that term lifeline needs some context. While the platform's 80 to 20 revenue split is famously generous, the reality for most creators is far from a gold rush. Earnings are incredibly skewed. The top 1% of creators can make over $100,000 a month, but the median monthly income is only around $100. In fact, data shows about 75% of all creators on the platform earn less than $100 a month. And part of how that cash machine works is also under a microscope. There's a booming, ethically questionable industry of so-called ghost chatters. These are third-party agencies that creators hire to impersonate them in direct messages, selling a manufactured intimate connection to subscribers 24/7. Some agencies claim they can double or even quadruple a creator's revenue this way. This has led to class action lawsuits from subscribers who felt deceived, believing they were talking to the creator, not a team of professional chatters. But that meteoric rise brought intense scrutiny. As the platform's popularity surged, so did pressure from lawmakers and regulators over its adult content. The pressure reached a boiling point in 2021 when OnlyFans announced a plan that sent shockwaves through its community. It was going to ban all sexually explicit material. The decision wasn't just about vague regulatory pressure. It was a direct result of a financial choke point. The company revealed it was at risk of being deplatformed by its banking partners and payment processors. The backlash from creators and users was so intense, so immediate, that the company was forced into a dramatic U-turn just days later, scrapping the plan entirely. And that brings us to today. Radvinsky's passing comes just a year after he was reportedly exploring a sale of the company. This uncertainty couldn't come at a worse time as a new regulatory gauntlet is closing in. Without its decisive leader, the company now has to navigate incredibly complex and costly new laws, like the UK's Online Safety Act and the EU's Digital Services Act. These rules demand robust, expensive age verification systems and content moderation, with fines reaching up to 10% of global revenue. Without Radvinsky at the helm, the question is whether OnlyFans is equipped to handle this fight or if it's about to become a prime target for regulators. From a company facing an uncertain future without its leader, we turn to a tech giant that is deliberately rearranging its own legendary product schedule, all for the sake of AI. Apple might be about to break one of its most sacred traditions. Get this. This fall, we could see a staggered iPhone hardware launch, with the iPhone 18 Pro arriving potentially months before the standard model. This isn't just a supply chain hiccup. It could be a deliberate new strategy. We're seeing Apple potentially adopt a strategy Samsung has used for years, maintaining separate launch windows for its flagship series phones and its foldable devices. This allows them to target different market segments and generate sustained buzz. For Apple, this would shatter its predictable annual launch, but the goal could be to further differentiate the Pro line as a truly premium, cutting-edge product. The risk, of course, is that it could make the standard iPhone feel like an afterthought. So what's causing this massive shift in strategy for the world's most valuable company? It all comes down to one thing: artificial intelligence. Apple is betting its future on a massive AI upgrade for Siri, a project called Apple Intelligence, but key features have reportedly been delayed, and that delay is now creating a major bottleneck across Apple's entire product line. So the thing is, Siri has been around for over a decade. The reason it's suddenly this massive roadblock is a classic case of what engineers call technical debt. Siri's original code is now so old and complex that integrating modern, powerful AI models is incredibly difficult. This problem has been made worse by internal restructuring and the loss of key AI talent to competitors. Essentially, Apple isn't just building a new feature. It's trying to fundamentally rebuild the foundation of an old product while the entire industry is racing ahead. And the problem doesn't stop with the iPhone. A new smart home hub, a next generation HomePod, and even a new Apple TV are all reportedly on hold, waiting for the new and improved Siri to be ready before they can launch. This all comes after a series of relatively iterative hardware updates, from new MacBooks to new AirPods. It's easy to see those iterative updates as stagnation, but they were likely part of a deliberate strategy. This wasn't stagnation, it was preparation. Apple was methodically equipping its new hardware with the necessary silicon, like the powerful neural engines in its M series and A series chips, to effectively run the Apple Intelligence that's coming. The real upgrade was happening on the inside, laying the groundwork for this exact AI moment. The message from industry watchers is clear. Apple is putting all its chips on its upcoming AI announcements at its Worldwide Developers Conference. The company is promising incredible updates and AI advancements that are expected to redefine its entire software ecosystem. And when they say AI advancements, they are talking about a fundamentally different approach. While competitors like Google and Microsoft rely heavily on the cloud, Apple is betting on on-device AI. This means processing your data right on your phone, which is a huge win for privacy and speed. It's a genuine competitive advantage based on user trust. The question is whether this on-device approach can deliver features as powerful as the cloud-based competition. The bottom line is that Apple's entire hardware roadmap, from its flagship phone to its ambitions for your living room, is now hostage to the success of its AI software. The company is fundamentally rearranging its legendary product schedule, all in the high-stakes race to deliver on its AI promises.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.